We're going to rank the top 12 or so rookie wide receivers for redraft. We're going to go on how they should be ranked, how they should be valued, and we're going to talk about their game. If you're interested in these rookie wide receivers, we're going to go deep, detailed on them today so you can understand what you're getting into when you're looking at these rookies in your fantasy football drafts. And we're talking about redraft, not dynasty. We've done this a lot for dynasty over the offseason, but we're really going to look at the short term here, how they could be valuable for you in redraft, maybe even DFS, or even short term dynasty for this year for your lineups. But let's dig in. Let's go to the tier maker. Let's look at these players here and how we should be ranking them today. And with the tiers, when I put a player in tiers, they're kind of together. We play a portfolio game, some of us do, and if we got too much of one, maybe we go to the other. It's close. We may flip and flop. But the tier A, we don't have a stud tier. We don't have a Jamar Chase in this class or a Calvin Johnson, but we got some very good wide receivers, and we have a crew in the first round, and we got them split up a little bit. We're going to start things off with Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and this dude looks good. A good route runner. He's going to be on the field. We'll be sharing the field with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. We want to see how the targets are going to go around in this team. This team is going to be a little bit reliant on the run game. They do have 2 running backs drafted in the second round, last 2 drafts. They also have Kenny McIntosh there. They are not a stranger to the run game, but they also got DK Metcalf. They're soaking targets, soaking deep balls. Tyler Lockett as well is no joke either, but Jaxon Smith-Njigba should work his way in and looks good in the preseason as well, and is an incredible route runner who should earn a bit of opportunity. On top of that, Jordan Addison is being drafted around the same lights. Sometimes gets to draft ahead of Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and honestly, if I feel myself drafting a lot of Jaxon Smith-Njigba, I will go over to Jordan Addison just to get more shares of him in my leagues. Jordan Addison is in a good offense here. Even though he's going to be playing second fiddle to Justin Jefferson, the Vikings were 7th in the league last year in offensive pace. One of the fastest offenses in the league. That means they moved the ball quickly. That means more opportunities with more plays ran, which is a good thing here for the passing game. He should easily be the wide receiver 2 in this offense sooner than later. It's bound to happen. It's almost guaranteed. And when that's happening, he's going to get targets. One, there's a lot of volume in this offense. This offense is very potent. Kirk Cousins dishes it out. Also, he's got Justin Jefferson on the other side, so he's going to be facing weaker opposition. He's going to be playing against number 2 cornerbacks, nickelbacks, and all that stuff. They're going to move him around, put him in the slot. He's a very good wide receiver. He got Kenny Pickett drafted in the first round, for Christ's sake. Jordan Addison is good. He's going to get opportunity, and he's a player that you're going to want to put chips on in the middle rounds. You're going to want to try and chase that upside. You're going to want to see what happens. But there's still 2 first-round wide receivers we want to look at here, but I got them knocked down on a tier because we're talking redraft. We're talking this year, and we're talking Zay Flowers, and I like him. I like him as a prospect. I like what we see in him, and I think he's a very good wide receiver. He's very nuanced. He runs a lot of deep routes. Had a 13 ADOT in college, and his best year was at 15, so he can get the deep ball. And we also know he can run routes on the short end, intermediate end, and he's got a little bit of dog in him when it comes to breaking off them routes and when the ball's in the air. The question with this team is about 20 to 40% of the targets on any given week will go to Mark Andrews. Then Lamar Jackson will take off and run it a bit, and the volume of this passing game can get a little wonky. However, when you're looking at Zay Flowers, you're kind of thinking about him middle of the year. You're kind of thinking about game scripts. You're kind of looking at these deep balls. You're kind of looking at when the volume's up a little bit. He's going to get his opportunity. He's going to get his run, and that might trickle down later as he gets more established. And you're going to want to close your eyes and hit that submit button on some of these plus matchups. Plus matchups mean a game that's supposed to be high scoring. That's what I'm talking about when I say plus matchups. So games that are supposed to be high scoring that you think could go off the rails, you're probably going to throw him in some lineups. You're probably going to be thinking about that, but we'll know more once we get in the middle of the season. But he's also a candidate to go nuclear because he is nuanced, a very good route runner, a technician, and can get downfield for the deep ball. If you want to talk deep balls, let's look at Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston is on a team with some veterans on it, which could allow him some time to get on the field, some time to earn some snaps and routes. But the thing about this is he's in a grand situation with Justin Herbert. Good volume in the passing game. A lot of opportunity here. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. The Bill health there hasn't been great these last few years for these two players. I look for him to get opportunities sooner than later, and look for him to get some chances in this offense. But you do not want to just start throwing them in your lineup week 1 and feel good about it, because no one's going to do that. However, in redraft, there's going to be a time somewhere in the middle of the year where everybody's going to be running for him. And he might still be on rosters in redraft or even chilling on the waiver wire. Really depends on how this offense is looking like, how the health and stability stays up in this wide receiver core. But the upside is there. It is grand, and you want to chase that. A first-round wide receiver going to the Chargers with Justin Herbert, a team that just floods the game with passes. One of the top quarterbacks in the league in pass attempts per game. You want that with your first-round wide receiver, especially in redraft, especially a wide receiver who's bigger, who's projected to get deep downfield targets. That'll at least get you spike weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a few games with a couple of spike weeks in there. And I would not be surprised if that happens. We're going to go to C tier. And we've been watching this team all offseason, all training camp. We've been watching these wide receivers battle it out. If you've been a fan of the channel, you know who I'm talking about here. And we're talking about Rashee Rice, however you want to say it, drafted in round 2. You want assets in this Chiefs passing game. You want them. You want to take chances on any of these wide receivers. Any of them can go nuclear. Any of them can do something. And what I could see out of this passing game is like we may have a Sky Moore game. We might have a Rice game. Hell, we may even have a Tony game. We may have a Richie James game. We might even have some Justin Ross games. Because Patrick Mahomes doesn't care and he'll just sling it to whoever's open or whoever's doing well with that matchup that week. Rice could have that. Rice is going in the later rounds, double digits, and people are just taking speculative flyers on him, and that's where you're at in these rookies in this tier list anyways. Honestly, you're seeing the first 4 here drafted instantly in a lot of leagues, and then after that, they're speculative draft picks, and you're just taking gambles, and you're hoping you hit on one. Rashee Rice is one of those. He's in a grand offense, second-round draft capital, looking good at training camp, getting opportunity, getting snaps with the first team. Rice has an opportunity to exceed expectations. Now we're looking at tier D. We're looking at guys here with draft capital. We're looking at guys here that are good. We need some stuff to happen for them. We need some things to break for them to be fantasy relevant. But also, wouldn't be surprised if that happened. And we're looking at 2 guys here. And it's thin here. We're talking redraft. Jayden Reed of the Packers. Going to be playing in the slot a lot. He should be getting snaps. Wide receiver 3 on the team, maybe even wide receiver 2 or 1. This guy has earned a large snap share already. Been looking good in training camp. Good hands, nuanced route runner. Can get it done. Very dependable. Broke out with 2 different collegiate programs. However, fantasy football is fantasy football, and we're here on the numbers. We got Jordan Love at quarterback. How's that going to look over a full season? How is the team going to really project this out from a week-to-week basis? What are the game plans going to look like? Are we going to stay run heavy? Remember, they got 2 good running backs still. Maybe they want to keep the game pace slow to prevent them from making mistakes. That could impact his opportunities. Or game scripts break, and maybe we get some games that go YOLO, and Jayden Reed's a benefactor of that because he's a good wide receiver. And the competition on his team at wide receiver is a bunch of other young wide receivers, and he's got the draft capital, and he's got the nuanced route running, had a schedule, looking good, and we've been talking about him. We've been looking at him. Look at those videos. That's why we do the clips, so we can see how these players are looking like in camp, and he's gelling well. Jonathan Mingo. Things got to break well. Things got to happen. Bryce Young's got to be playing well. The volume's got to be looking good. The odds are stacked against him, but I'm already telling you the odds are stacked against every wide receiver outside of Tier B. Tier C might be good. You might get some elevation due to Patrick Mahomes. Tier D, though, you need some stuff to break their way. They're good wide receivers. They can make things happen on their own, but we need some stuff to happen for them. Jonathan Mingo, big play wide receiver, get downfield, good athleticism. And if you think about it this way, this team's developing. This team is developing a rookie quarterback. This team could really flip their lineup around mid-season, back into the season. Jonathan Mingo could be getting a large amount of snaps and targets as they get the filling out process with this team. We could be seeing him get some opportunity, which could allow him to be a fantasy asset down the line. People are still drafting him as a flyer and redraft in the later rounds, still holding some value. But I wouldn't be surprised you can pick him up off waivers too here in the first couple weeks of the season. But that's something you need to keep in mind, though. I look for him to get air yards. I look for him, a guy, to get deep targets, get some spike weeks here and there. I look for this offense to be a little wonky this year. They may slow it down a bit to help Bryce Young, to limit mistakes. Tier D's got that theme there where these offenses might be a little bit slow, and that impacts players, especially young ones. That's something you want to keep an eye out on. Tier E, we got a bunch of jabronis here that are late round picks, mid round picks, but have some upside. Jalin Hyatt, we're going to have to watch him. We're going to have to watch him closely. We have to see how many snaps he's getting and watch how many targets is going his way and how those targets are going. I look for him to get air yards when he is on the field. What I mean by air yards, if you don't know what that means, that is the distance traveled when the quarterback throws the ball to where the target's supposed to land at to the wide receiver. Not counting yards after the catch, but where the wide receiver is supposed to be at. We're expecting him to get deeper targets due to how he played at Tennessee. He's a deep ball specialist, and if he gets deep balls consistently, then we're hoping that he nails or catches a couple of them in a game, creating a spike week for him. And we're expecting this maybe to have some opportunity for him to do so with this middle, late season, whenever he starts getting acclimated to the offense. That's why he's a player you're paying attention to. Usually in redraft, he's not getting drafted. You're probably going to see him go undrafted in your fantasy league. Maybe one of the last rounds. Someone taking a speculative risk. But he's a player you want to keep an eye on. Puka Nacua is a player that might get drafted in your league, might not. Really depends on who you're drafting with. But he might see some opportunity this year with the Rams. Opportunity is everything. They got a very ambiguous depth chart, which could create some opportunities for them. The wide receiver core is not super deep there. They've also had some injuries there in the past. Things could change there quick and in a hurry. You could see him get some opportunities. He's got ball skills, looked good at the Senior Bowl. A lot of people like him. Speaking about Senior Bowl, Michael Wilson has been looking good in training camp. He looked good at the Senior Bowl. He's got good ball skills, light on his feet. More for injuries, he might have been drafted earlier. Might even came out earlier. But he's a good player. Getting opportunities. This team's ambiguous. This whole team's ambiguous. They're looking at what they want to do with this roster for the long term. And then DeAndre Hopkins is gone, creating opportunities for a lot of wide receivers in this offense. There could be times where you're just plugging and playing with him in your roster. People are drafting him probably in the later rounds or he's going undrafted, but a guy you need to pay attention to. Deep dynasty players know about him. He's been a prospect in rookie drafts all offseason long in the later rounds of rookie drafts. A guy you need to pay attention to and redraft at the least. Maybe you'll draft him, maybe you won't, but a guy you need to pay attention to. Tier E is the pay attention tier, really. You're really writing these names down. You're going to look for them on the waiver wire. I'm probably going to have a you need video every week on some of these players, letting you know, hey, this guy's on the waiver wire. He's seen X amount of targets, X amount of snaps. You're going to want to look at this player. If you're stuck, if you're hurting at wide receiver, I look for Tier E and some of Tier F to do so, especially with Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims is in a situation where he could be seeing good money targets because he's a deep ball specialist who's also a nuanced route runner. Second round pick. The Broncos didn't have many draft picks this year. Remember, they had to get Russell Wilson. So them utilizing some of their capital to get Marvin Mims is a big deal. Tim Patrick's gone. His season's done. Someone's got to step up now. Marvin Mims could be seeing some opportunity. We got to see the passing volumes here. Javonte Williams coming back with a hurt leg. Looking good, though. Looking good. I'm not down on him. But he's also coming back from an injury. That's no lie there. Samaje Perine, too. This team might live on the passing game. They invested a lot in the offensive line. Jerry Jeudy played nicked up last year. Could happen again. That's in the portfolio there as well. Along with Courtland Sutton, we've had some injuries with these wide receivers. Marvin, Mims could be seeing some opportunities this year. A guy you need to pay attention to, but we're not seeing him really get drafted and redraft unless someone's taking a speculative flyer on him. When I say speculative, I'm talking about a bet that you're taking a hit on, that you're hoping that hits big. You're hitting on that ceiling. You're trying to gamble on it, but you know likely it's not going to work out, or likely you're just taking this cheap bet and you're just hoping you hit on the moon. Think about those shit coins here in the Bitcoin universe. But looking at tier F, A.T. Perry, very nuanced player, good ball skills, has speed, could work his way up the Saints depth chart. Josh Downs with a rookie quarterback, slot receiver. We got Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor. We got some other weapons in there. Very fun player to watch. Fantasy-wise, it might take him a little bit, but a player you need to pay attention to nonetheless. The Texans got Tank Dell and Xavier Hutchinson. Same situation as with the Panthers. We have a developmental quarterback. They might flip the script on this depth chart later in the season. These guys get a lot of opportunity as they see what they have on the roster, so they know how to build going forward, which means they could be pieces for your fantasy team later down the road. I love Kayshon Boutte. Would not be surprised if he works his way up. Would not be surprised. Out of all these players in tier E and F, when I'm talking like real talk on the players I like him better than those players. If I'm seeing him get more run in the preseason here in the next couple weeks, and if I feel like he's starting to be on the verge of starter snaps, you might have to push him up to tier D. He's that good of a player. He's a first-round caliber player. He'd be up there with these guys if he didn't get hurt and he was still on that trajectory. That didn't happen. Fell in the draft. Now we're with the Patriots. Now we're an underdog story, and we're going to wait and see what happens. Trey Palmer's been doing good in training camp this year. He's got speed to burn. Fun player to watch. But we got two hosses at wide receiver there with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Cedric, Tillman, pretty much same thing, though. We got Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore. How many targets can go around in this offense? Rookie wide receiver drafted in the third round. We don't have top 50 draft capital. They don't have to work them in yet. The sunk cost isn't there. But a name you need to know just in case things start breaking down this wide receiver depth chart. We've seen Amari Cooper play hurt for a bit. Players get hurt. And that's just how it is. Still a very good, talented player. His 2021 season at Tennessee, one of the best wide receivers in the country. Got hurt last year. We wouldn't be talking about Jalin Hyatt if Cedric Tillman didn't get hurt. Jalin Hyatt's game projects well for fantasy, especially for DFS. More for DFS than anything else because of the deep balls. Cedric Tillman, though, bigger wide receiver, can be productive, nuanced, good ball skills. Overall here, when you look at this list, you're focusing on tiers A and B, and then you're taking dart throws on C and D here a little bit, and then you're monitoring tier E and F. Most of these guys aren't getting drafted in your redraft leagues, but A and B, those are heavy hitters. They're going in the middle rounds. C is double-digit rounds with Rice. Same with D. But we're going to want to take shots at some of those guys, but they're also going in rounds where you're taking shots at running back, especially this year, because there's a lot of jabroni running backs in this year's draft who are good RB2s on their team or RB1s just in weird situations that you can just catch at cheap draft capital. You can go hero RB, draft your 1 or 2 RB anchors, wait a lot of rounds, then you're in the double-digit rounds, and then you can select a ton of running backs and just smash the position from there and really have a good core still. Or you just keep drafting running backs anyways in the middle late rounds because 0 RB even is a good draft to really play with the running back position. But wide receiver here is looking strong. It's looking very good here with the rookies. I feel like we're going to get a couple of them do some things. Like I've said in a lot of good wide receiver classes during the last few years, we're going to see some of these wide receivers pop off left and right at different times, kind of like fireworks. It's going to be fun to watch. You're not going to know exactly when, but we know some of these guys are going to hit the ground running sooner than later. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Which one are you trying to get in your drafts? Let me hear about it. Hit that subscribe button. Stop missing out. Catch you on the next video.